Welcome back, RoxxStars, to yet another episode of From the Vault, Ricky Rock's Retro Action Figure Review. Today we got a lot to cover. We're going to be having a lot of fun because we're going to be looking at something long overdue. We're going to be checking out Mattel's Masters of WWE Universe. And welcome back. As I said, today we're going to be checking out Mattel's Masters of WWE Universe line. Started in 2019, recently ended, unfortunately, with Wave 7, which was a fantastic wave, which I unfortunately haven't been able to get my hands on yet, but man, oh man, these things are awesome. Now, if you don't know, or you don't know your history, or you just are unfamiliar, the point of this line was for Mattel to mash up two of its biggest licensed properties of all time, WWE with their Masters of the Universe line, which was so incredibly popular and influential in the 1980s. Probably my favorite action figure line of all time. So the gimmick was to do pro wrestling action figures in the scale and style and gimmickry, if you will, of the Masters of the Universe figures. So what you'd end up with is stuff like, for example, this Sting from Series 1, where you'd have a really awesome Sting figure, but in the 5.5 scale and with the same pose and musculature and weapons gimmicks as the old Masters of the Universe He-Man action figures, which is a really cool idea. And they did 7 waves of these, starting from 2019 and running up till a few months ago. Late 2021, I think, was the last series. And, they did a lot of cool characters. Some of them didn't quite make the cut. But they were all really inspired. I love the whole idea of these things from the first time I saw them walking down the aisle at Walmart. I believe these were a Walmart exclusive, which pretty much meant internet exclusive, because you almost never saw these in the actual store outside of the first couple figures. Most people I know got a lot of these on eBay for like $50 or more. Some of them are really expensive now. And, it's unfortunate, but that's the nature of collecting modern day action figures. Some of these things are getting pretty out of hand because of what I would consider the artificial rarity of them. But I mean, that's a whole other conversation. These things are really cool. And again, you look at that, the first thing that comes to your mind if you know your history is, wow, that looks like a He-Man type action figure. And that was the entire point. And as somebody who obviously loved wrestling enough to make it a career, and then, He-Man being the first toy line I ever collected, Masters of the Universe, to me it's like chocolate and peanut butter. Couldn't do better. So we're going to be looking at a couple of these figures over 2 or 3 episodes. I don't have all of them right now, so we're going to cover the stuff I do have. I am planning on picking up the rest of the line because there were only 4 figures per wave. There's only 7 waves. It's a really easy line to collect because of that. A lot of the figures are still kind of easy to find depending on which characters you're looking for. Some guys like Sting and Undertaker, they go for a pretty penny, but other guys like the New Day figure, guys like Finn Balor, I see them pretty frequently. Rey Mysterio, I see him everywhere. Roman Reigns, I still see him at the flea market. This Sting, for example, and this ring I got at Englishtown Flea Market from where else? Funkenstein Wrestling Superstore. You're going to have that flashing on the screen there because I always put them over because they've been so good to me over the years. And as I always say, if you don't buy your wrestling figures from them, you're an asshole. They got an eBay store too, so even if you don't live in Englishtown, New Jersey, or close to it, you can still get your stuff from them, and you're still going to get the best prices, the best customer service. You're going to get the best. I mean, you got to go through them. They should be your first pick. If you can't get them firsthand, if you got to go through secondary market to get your hands on these wrestling collectibles, that's where you go. So that's where I picked up Sting for way less than what the average price is on eBay. Way less than that. I paid pretty much retail for this guy 2 years after he came out. That's how good it is when you have friends in high places. So we're going to be looking around at a few of the different figures that I do have. We're going to be jumping all over the place because I don't have a lot of complete waves. I pretty much just cherry-picked some of the characters I like. So we're going to be coming back in just a minute with the first figure I picked up from the line. It wasn't Sting. Who was it? Wait and see. Yeah, we are back and we are ready to go. The cream rises to the top of Masters of the WWE Universe with the one and only Macho Man, Randy Savage. Yeah, this was the first figure in the line I picked up because it was one of the first that I actually saw on shelves at Walmart. And I mean, look at him. And just look at this guy. I had to have it. I think I wasn't even really aware that this line was coming out until I saw it, because I don't always keep up too much with new stuff. But I was at Walmart and I happened to be walking down the aisle and I saw a mix of Wave 1 and 2 figures, and this guy had to have immediately. There's just so much to love about this figure, and I actually did take him out of the package. He's been on display for a while, but I did save the package and the blister, and for today I put it back in just for a moment so you could see, you know, how it will look when it was pristine. And oh man, I love everything about these guys, because first of all, let's take a look at the packaging. And I don't have a He-Man figure handy or a Masters of the Universe figure handy at the moment, but these are obviously heavily inspired by, with the explosive rock, you know, motif in the background flying at you, and the ominous skies. Obviously in the Masters of the Universe it was more like red and blue, and this is like a purplish kind of thing, so there's some distinction there. Masters of the WWE Universe logo, again, very distinctive and understandably derivative of what they were going for, what they were borrowing from, and they make it a point to show off the power posing. The biggest thing that set these apart from the vintage Masters of the Universe was that these guys actually have more than the standard 5 or 6 points of articulation you had back then. These guys have articulation everywhere, which you'll see when I start playing with them. And this line actually predates Mattel's recent Masters of the Universe Origins figures by a good bit. I didn't even know Origins was coming out, because I was kind of not really, I was busy at that moment in time, so some stuff flew right past me. But so when I saw these in the shelves, the first thing I said out loud was, man, it'd be cool if they did He-Man toys like this with the modern articulation. And then, you know, like a month later they did, so it was like, I didn't know it was coming, but I don't know, I just had a feeling. So this was the first one I got. It just jumped off the shelf at me. Take a look around here at the back, and you've got, just like the old Masters of the Universe, you got a little bit of a illustrated thing there showing the figure in action. You get the nice cross-cell artwork with the other characters of this wave. This was Wave 2, I believe, and not a bad mix of characters. They really did a great job across the line of trying to mix the vintage characters with the newer characters. What I noticed personally was that the figures based on the vintage characters sold a lot better than the ones based on the more modern guys, but I mean, that just seems to be toy collectors in general. I mean, if it's a Macho Man or a Sting or an Ultimate Warrior, everybody's got to have it. If it's like a Triple H or Rey Mysterio, people already have 100 of them and they seem a little less excited. But that doesn't make them bad figures, though. And so this is just really cool. What I'm going to do right now is, since he's already opened, as you can see, I'm just going to pop the stuff out of the box, and we're going to jump right into the review with no cuts. So there's the little accessory gimmicks there, which is awesome. I pretty much always save this blister for this episode. You guys know me. I keep the cards, I chuck the plastic, because it just takes up way too much space. But I love the artwork, I love the cards, so we're going to be hanging on to that. And here is the man himself, along with his Macho Mace. Now, obviously, this is obviously based on Man-at-Arms' infamous battle mace that he would wield in the action figures and the cartoons. Very iconic. This is, I think, actually, I know that some of the parts Mattel used for this line were from the Masters of the Universe Classics mail order line, some of the weapons and armor. I'm not sure if this was a Classics one remolded or if this was one that ended up being used in Origins later on. I forget. What you have here is you have extra armored pieces. This Macho Man is basically based on Battle Armor He-Man from the original Masters line, where when you hit his chest plate, There was like a rotating gimmick in there that would show off his armor in different stages of disrepair. They did a little bit differently in the modern times with these pieces that you would snap on underneath the armor. Pretty cool. You know, they take a old school to the new school, like I'm always talking about. They do old stuff with a modern twist. And a nice cool little pack in here. They all come with these little comic booklets that are inspired by the original mini comics, even though very, very scaled down, disappointingly so. The original Masters of the Universe mini comics were averaged about 24, 25 pages each, so they were an actual comic book. Here, what you get is you get the cover. On the back, you get the cross-sell. Again, just like the old comics. I really like this cover here of Savage and Triple H duking it out, very cool. And then inside, it's cool, but also a little disappointing is you only get these two little pages here. One of them shows off the character, and the other one is a one-page little illustrated comic strip, which is very well done, I will say. Like, the illustration's great, and the little quotations and word balloons and all that is really great for capturing the essence of the Macho Man character. They did a great job with what it is. It's just, I guess, to keep costs down, they didn't go with actual mini comics, and they just did these little two-pagers, which is a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, I do get it, you know. I mean, things cost money. Nowadays, everything costs more. So to keep costs down, you gotta cut corners here and there. I get it. Would have been nice to have a full comic book, but I guess they just didn't have the resources, time, wherewithal, whatever have you. But moving on to the man himself. I mean, look at this guy here. Look at him. He is just fantastic. A to the Z, baba, like I love to say. You know, highly posable, perfect likeness. And this is pretty much even, you know, based on my favorite iteration of Macho Man, the orange trunks and the yellow boots. I mean, like, very representative of his '89 look going into WrestleMania 5. I like the battle armor here, which is based on one of his more iconic t-shirts that he wore all the time back in '88, '89. The bandana is removable, which is awesome, and it doesn't even, it's not one of those pieces that is, like, it really breaks up the sculpt or whatever. It looks like it's part of his head, but then it very easily pops right off. A little too easy, maybe, because it, like, flies off when you move him around sometimes, but it's cool. I dig it. The sunglasses, I think, are not, I haven't actually messed with this guy in a while, but that's cool. It's still a great Macho Man head, regardless. Okay. I'll show you the back here. See, it's got the basic gimmick on underneath all his armor, the iconic words and stars trunks. And one of the coolest things about these guys, as I mentioned, highly, highly articulated and posable. Just like the Masters Origins figures that would come later, which we are going to talk about. I did cover Castle Grayskull not that long ago. But I mean, what's cool with these figures compared to the original vintage is that they have articulation everywhere. Like, I'm not even going to cover all the different points because there's just so much. I mean, the ankles, they hinge and they twist. The calves twist. The knees, you got ball joints on the hips and shoulders. You just got the wrists. You got wrists have hinges and swivels. It's just, there's so much you can do with these guys, whether it's these or the Origins. They're just highly posable, highly playable, great for kids, great for collectors who just want something awesome on the shelf. His Macho Mace fits really great right in his hand. You know, it's just, it's really cool. These are great for kids and collectors alike. They just really, really are. And they're great for customizers too. One of the things I've seen online, I don't personally do this because it always makes me nervous when I start popping parts off of my toys, but one of the coolest things about these figures is that they are modular, meaning that you could pretty much disassemble these guys completely, very simply, pop off the head, the hands, the arms. You could break everything down to its base components and reassemble them. So a lot of customizers, they've been buying these figures and the Origins figures, and without needing to do a lot of repainting or anything like that, they could just mix and match parts from these figures and just kit bash and make some really, really, really cool and unique custom creations. So I think that is just fantastic. Like I said, I don't do it. I mean, even with you know, stuff like Ultimates and Elites and things like that. You know, I'm old school. When they tell me, you know, pop the head off, pop the hands off, and this and that, I get a little nervous. I'm worried. I'm heavy-handed. I'm worried about snapping things. But it's one of the many awesome things you could do with these figures, and I love seeing people who are good at it take advantage of it, because it definitely makes it easy for you to do your own custom creations. One of the biggest things about the Masters of the Universe line is they had so many wacky and cool and amazing characters, and a lot of it was based on reusing parts in new ways. And you know, Mattel was really showing a lot of foresight by giving you an opportunity to do that, create your own wacky characters by doing that kind of kit bashing. So that's really cool. I mean, there's not a lot. I don't have a single negative thing to say about these guys. I mean, even looking at it, like right there, that's the facial likeness is just about on point. They didn't cut corners at these figures just because they were kids' toys and that they were part of a mashup line. You'd think maybe they would cut corners here and there, but no. The facial sculpts and likenesses on most of these are near perfect. The detailing on the costuming, near perfect. Some of the choices of gimmicks are a little suspect with some characters. Some of the characters didn't really seem like they fit the line as well as they could have, but they were put in because they were iconic. But, I mean, you know, when it works, it really works. So this was the first figure I bought, fell in love immediately. And, as I said, there's just, I can't say enough good things about it. And this is the first one I got, and right out of the box, you know, home run. That's why he went on my shelf immediately. The rest of them I saved so I could open them for you guys, but, you know, one cool thing here even, let's see how quick I can do this. Alright, there it is. How cool is that? Like I said, all his armor pieces and various gimmicks, they pop right off pretty easily. Took me about 30 seconds to get everything off of them, and what you have underneath is a very awesome, near perfect, basic Macho Man Randy Savage figure, as in, you know, if you're put off by the gimmicks of some of these guys, you know, don't be, because, I mean, this is a regular, this looks like a great regular Macho Man figure once you take all the armor pieces off of him. Even if you don't care about the mashup gimmick with the He-Man stuff, and, you know, you could just buy this figure, take all the pieces off, put them in a drawer, grab some knee pads off another figure, pop them right on there, and you'd have a perfect 5.5 scale Macho Man. And that's really awesome. You know, I like that it could be either way. You could have it full gimmick or no gimmick, and that is so cool. I mean, they really thought of everything for this line, for the most part. I love it. Like I said, you know, really can't say enough good things. This guy went on my shelf the day I bought him because I just couldn't keep him trapped in the plastic. You know, you get a little better shot without the gimmicks of some of the details. They even put 2 stars on the boots. Gotta have that, you know. Better shot of the logo on the trunks. I mean, I guess the one thing I could say is there's no tape on his hands, which he usually had. But I mean, now we're getting nitpicky. Like I said, you know, the worst thing you'd have to do if you wanted to display him as a regular Macho Man figure is just grab some spare knee pads off another figure and stick them on there, and that's nothing. So that's really cool. Like, without the gimmicks on him, he looks like a figure that could be in part of the newer Superstars line that Mattel's doing to kind of replace this line without the mashup. I guess you know, it just, they got to a point where they figured it would work better just separating WWE and Masters gimmick-wise, but a lot of people really loved these figures, so I'm glad they're keeping it going in some way, because, you know, you got to have a Hogan to go with this guy too, right? So, and Hollywood's one of the first figures from that series to come out, so that's something I'm looking forward to picking up. But yeah, first figure out of the box, it was a winner, Macho Man Randy Savage, brother, and he's an A+, 10 out of 10 for me. Can't say enough good things, and we're going to be moving on to another great figure that I picked up. We're going to be back in just a minute. And again, we're back to the man called Sting, the Dark Warrior with a voice of silence and a mission of justice, who strikes fear into the black heart of the evil force that created him. I mean, you know, again, great Sting figure even without the gimmicks. I will say, as far as the gimmicks go, where I understand where they took it from, it feels kind of like they didn't go full out on trying to merge Sting into the whole Masters of WWE aesthetic. It's really just a basic Sting that comes with a cool little weapon, but we'll talk about that when we get him out of package. Still a fantastic figure, and you know, on the back you'll see the rest of Wave 1 with the cross-sell and all that stuff. Great stuff. This one obviously has become pretty hard to find, especially since he left WWE, go to AEW, so this was one of the last ever Sting figures produced. Been waiting for a long time to take this guy out of the package, so I'm going to do that, and then we're going to come check it out. Hang on. And there he is. Don't you dare cross him or get in his way, because if you do, you're going to have to pay to the man called Sting. Throw back to 1990s there. So this is obviously Sting in one of my favorite looks of all time, the Starrcade 97 attire, which unfortunately he only rocked a couple of times before he went to an all-black singlet. Okay, we're going to talk about that problem in a minute, but I'm not going to start over my whole speech just because the boy's gimmick is a little half-hearted there. Yeah, he had this look for a minute, and then he went to the all-black singlet, and then the singlet with the scorpions on the side. I was always partial to this one here, this look, so I'm really glad that they bothered to recreate it. Most figures don't with this kind of Sting. They usually go for the simpler look. The gimmick itself, based on Clawful from Masters of the Universe, like I said, the Stinger's gimmick is not quite as well done as some of the other figures in the line. It's still a must-have figure, but it's basically a claw that goes on his hand, which I guess is supposed to represent a scorpion's claw, even though it's more reminiscent of Clawful from Masters. And this other weapon here that he's got, I don't know what the deal is with this. I don't know exactly what it's supposed to be. I know I don't like it because it makes the figure very top-heavy. He cannot hold it well at all, no matter what you try to pose him with. Eventually, over time, the weight of the weapon is going to make his arm go down into this pose, so I'm never going to pose him with these weapons on. This is just going to be a basic Sting figure on my shelf, even though that kind of defeats the purpose of Masters of WWE. But again, they didn't really go all out with the gimmick for this one. The pieces are really easy to come out. This one even, you got to really kind of twist it to make it sit in his hand at all. He doesn't really like to hold it, it falls right out. So the weapons for me were a miss, even though I get what they were going for. But removed from that, the basic Sting figure, wow, so close to perfect. If only he had gloves on, it would be a perfect 10 of a Sting figure. But again, it seems like a lot of people cut corners somewhere with these kind of figures. Either they don't have wrist tape or knee pads or gloves. It's like, come on, get it together. Don't just be 9/10 perfect. If you're so close, go the whole 9 yards, you know? Nothing on the back, but he didn't really have anything on the back at this point anyway. But man, I love the deco and the detailing. Like, I don't give a crap about these weapons. They kind of suck, but who cares, right? This figure, the figure itself is awesome. Perfect Sting like this. The hair is great. I like that the details painted on from where the padding was on his shoulders and pants. They're just painted on, but they still look really cool. The Scorpion is pretty much identical to the one he had on at Starrcade 97. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this. If he had better weapons and he had gloves on, he'd be perfect. As it is, 9 out of 10, but I'm not mad at it. I love the figure, and you've heard me say a million times about many figures. You know, I'm all about the figures. The accessories, you know, they don't make or break a figure for me most of the time. This, unfortunately, is a case where they're getting thrown right in the drawer, but whatever. And over here, again, you got a cool little mini-comic inspired pack-in. A nice little cover shot. On the back, you got the cross-sell. Why would Sting be fighting a giant scorpion? They would make natural allies. But then I didn't read the comic yet. Maybe the comic explains it on the interim. Okay, yeah, so according to this, it says that Triple H sent it after him, which I could believe. You know, he would never stop at anything to derail somebody's push, and we saw the lengths he would go to shut down Sting's push at that WrestleMania disaster a few years ago, which was the last premium WWE event I ever watched, because, oh man, I almost kicked a hole in the TV screen after that disaster, but that's neither here nor there. But so yeah, you got the little mini comic. I really love these to the point where I wish they put more into them than just these 2 little pages, but you can't have everything, and I gotta say, I love that they even bothered at all. But You know, even in the comic and on the art on the cover, he's got his gloves on, but they didn't give him gloves on the figure. What's up with that, Mattel? You guys were so close. If he had a better gimmick, and if they put some, even if they just painted his hands black and did nothing else, then it would be perfect. Better weapons in the gloves, then it'd be 11 out of 10. As it is, you know, 9.95 maybe. I love it. It's not going to kill it for me that I'm not going to be able to use the weapons display. This is going to go great with the Superstars, Ric Flair and Hollywood Hogan figures that are coming out. So it's like you can't lose. If you find this one and you can get them for less than $100, do it. You know, even if you don't care about the other stuff. The figure itself, fantastic. What else can I say? It's Sting! It's Sting! And she has defied the odds, disarmed her opponents, and demolished every obstacle. Soon everyone in WWE Eternia will learn that this is the man's world. They're all just living in it. Becky Lynch, one of the very few female figures in this line, unfortunately. But then again, the original Masters of the Universe line only had a couple too before She-Ra, and the She-Ra line was so different from Masters that it's barely even comparable. But at the time when this line was being done, Becky Lynch was the top women's star. It's a little surprising they didn't include like Charlotte or a couple of the others, Alexa Bliss. They would have made great additions to this line, but hey, we got Becky and we got Steph, so you know, it is what it is. This is, again, a really, really cool looking figure. I mean, they did not go half-ass on any of these. You know, you got the back here, again, the cross-sell and the illustration up top giving you the gist of the character. I love that kind of stuff. And, you know, gotta say, as far as posability, playability, already without even taking it out of the package, big step up from the old Mattel vintage female figures like Teela and the Sorceress, which didn't, you know, always stand very well, or they had, you know, issues with bow-leggedness and things like that. So, you know, already, you know, making some evolutionary changes. We're going to come back in a second and see how she looks out of the package. Can't wait. Alright, there she is, Becky Lynch. And again, one of the two female action figures that came in line, the other being Stephanie McMahon. Becky was from Wave 5, along with NWO Macho Man, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and Rowdy Piper. So this was the first female figure released in the series, and great choice. I gotta say, the one thing that disappoints me a little bit is I think the face could be a little bit better. It's like they made a deliberate choice to kind of go halfway between her actual likeness and looking like the way the female faces were actually sculpted in the old Masters figures, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like in between. It's not a perfect recreation of Becky Lynch's facial likeness like the Sting and Savage figures were near perfect. She's got a little bit puffiness going on, a little bit of a Cupid doll kind of thing in a sense, but I mean, it's okay. The detailing on the hair is great. I like the Teela inspired staff and shield gimmicks and armor. She's got knee pads, which even Savage didn't get to have knee pads. Although his, I guess, were part of his leg armor, but still, you know, he could have had something smaller underneath. She's got the actual knee pads. That's cool. The hands and the weapons are made of a more pliable plastic, so the shield is a little bit wider than her natural grip, but both the shield handle and her hand are a bit of a softer plastic, so it's more easy to pop in without worrying you're going to break something. One of the big problems with the weapons, especially shields in the original Masters line, was that a lot of times the handles would snap if you tried to put them in too many times. And with things like the weapons and armor for this line and the Origins line, Mattel has been using a more malleable, softer plastic to get around some of those issues so you don't have to worry so much, which I think is really cool. She got Teela's snake staff. Again, I don't know if these were literally reused again later on for Origins or not, but it would shock me that if they were just recast in different colors. I'd have to have them standing next to each other to really be able to tell you. But aside from that, you know, like I've said about all of these figures, the articulation is great. You know, they didn't do a ton. They just gave her 2 weapons, you know, and they dressed her up in a Teela-inspired outfit. But I mean, you know, so okay, they didn't overdo it or overthink it. Like, I'd rather have something like this than those horrible weapons that Sting came with, you know, because this doesn't make or break anything. They're just kind of there, but they sell the gimmick and they fit the character to a T. I mean, it's like, if you're going to go into the Masters gimmick, you know, Tila was the first female figure for that line, so obviously with Becky being the first for this line, you'd want to have her based off Tila. Likewise, when they did Stephanie McMahon, they based her on Eva Lynn, so they had the parallels and the symmetry, really creative, really thoughtful. I really loved that they went with that. And once again, we have the mini comic inspired pack-in, you know, the cool little artwork. I really like these things. Like I said, I just wish they did more with it instead of just a 2-pager. On the back, there's the gimmick there. This cover, I think, is actually really inspired. I'd have to dig out my mini comics collection from Dark Horse. They did this fantastic hardcover that reprinted every mini comic that ever came with a He-Man or She-Ra toy. But that one is very reminiscent of a sorceress pose, and I very much believe that it was one of the original mini comic covers, if I'm not mistaken. Man, they drew her hot in this. So, again, you got your little 2-page gimmick here. Pretty cool. You got your 1-page bio and 1-page comic. It is what it is. I wish they did more with it, but what you get, pretty cool. You know, I'm not going to complain too much, even though I've complained every time I opened one of these. It's like the worst thing for me about anything is that if I like something, I want more of it, and this is a pretty perfect example. You know, these things are cool, and it just feels like a little chintzy that they only did them like that, 2 pages worth, but hey, better than nothing, right? Better than nothing. So I do love it, and it's a great figure. I just wish the face was a little bit more on point, but, you know, the articulation, posability, great stuff. Again, I wish they had done more female figures in the line, because they had no shortage of awesome characters they could have used, but, you know, hey, for the 2 that they got, her and Steph, I mean, you can't really go wrong with that. So Becky Lynch, another great figure. We got a couple more left to look at, so we're just going to keep rolling, baby. And just when you think you have all the answers, Hot Rod changes the questions. Real superstars don't just wear kilts, they also wear battle armor. The evil Hot Rod, Rowdy Roddy Piper himself, rounding out Wave 5. I gotta say, I'm a little surprised considering he's more over as a babyface, but they went with heel Roddy. I guess it had to do with balance. Some of these waves seemed like they were trying to go 2 faces, 2 heels. So I guess they just market him as a heel. I mean, it's fine. You're playing with him. You can do whatever you want. Really cool here. Again, they reused Battle Armor He-Man's upper body gimmick to simulate the kilt. They went with the thing that Skeletor wore, which is kind of neat. A couple of the other characters had something similar. Faker had that. Pretty neat. It's a creative way of doing it without getting the point across without using a full kilt. Pretty neat. Love that. Down the back again, we've got the cross-cell artwork and the portrait illustration showing the character in action. Love it. Piper, man, one of my favorite guys of all time. There's a few guys where I really try hard to get every figure of them that comes out. Unfortunately, I don't have every Roddy action figure, but I mean, this was one I could not pass up. I mean, the Hot Rod, you know, going all the way back to my childhood. The first really big villain of Hogan's run, and Hogan being my all-time guy, so, you know, gotta love it. Gotta get the Hot Rod. So we're going to take him out, and we're going to see how cool he is. Alright, we got another great figure here in the Hot Rod, Rowdy Roddy Piper. Again, you got the battle armor, inspired by Battle Armor He-Man. You've got the Skeletor-inspired loincloth piece there. Comes with Battle Axe, inspired, of course, by the one that He-Man came with so long ago. A little less detailing, but the Origins axe has that too. It's more smooth with less sculpting on it. Very cool. I will say the one flaw I could see on mine right there is a little bit of paint slop on the armor up there. A little splash of red for no reason. Not sure why that is there, but hey, you know, nothing's perfect. These are kids' toys, and sometimes stuff happens at the factory. I get it. You know, it's not going to bother me enough to even bother trying to fix it. It was only ever going to be facing forward on the shelf anyway, so no complaints there. And again, you got the battle armor pieces that go on underneath the... when you take the armor off, you can swap these middle pieces out on the chest piece to display various levels of damage. I mean, it's a little more work than I'd want to do, personally. I miss the old gimmick where, you know, the stuff was internal, but I get why they did it this way, because this way you can take the armor off and have it still look cool and everything like that. Yeah, I mean, again, they didn't go overboard with the gimmicks on this one, and that's fine. It looks great. It's a great Roddy Piper figure, and it comes with a cool little mini comic showing you Piper and his arch nemesis, Mr. T, who was also released in this series, which is fantastic. A lot of people were not expecting a Mr. T figure, but we got one, and now we're getting one in the Ultimates line. Very cool, WrestleMania 1 inspired. We're back again. They show you the rest of Wave 5, one of the last waves in the series, but they definitely give us some heavy hitters with Wave 5, and then you pop it open again. You got the bio sheet. And you get a cool little one-page action comic of Piper and his arch nemesis, Mr. T. And again, I really love the way these are written because they capture the spirit of the characters so well. In this case, Mr. T has to learn the hard way that you do not throw rocks at a man with a battle axe. I mean, it's so cool. I mean, like I keep saying over and over and over again, these things are so cool that I wish they were more than a little brochure. I wish it was a full comic, but I mean, I get why not. So it's just, he said, if I love something, I want a ton more of it. So again, I had to have Piper. I would have loved even more 80s inspired characters to go with him, you know, and the articulation is good. He was a little bit more stiff in the joints right out of the package. He's kind of moving a little better now, but when I took him out of the package, he was a little more stiff than some of the other characters, but again, it's fine. These things, they hold up so well to posing and play. You're not going to break them unless you try to break them, I wouldn't think. I've even had a couple of my Origins figures like kind of just get bumped into the shelf and fall over or whatever, but they hold up really well. I mean, these are kids' toys first and foremost. Even though collectors are who's really buying these, it seems. I know people who've given them to their kids, and their kids had a blast with them too. And that's what's so great about this line, man. It appeals to people like me, with our nostalgia for things we grew up with, like Masters of the Universe and 80s wrestling. And then it also appeals to kids nowadays who maybe they're getting into this stuff because their parents were into it and whatever. And they like to play with these, you know. Some people just like to put them on the shelf, and some people actually like to knock them around, and they can hold up to that, which is great. It's not a collector thing where you're scared to move them around. I mean, he's, like I said, he's a little stiff. But Mattel really knew what they were doing with these guys. I mean, they covered as much of the angles as they could. I mean, you could get them into some funky poses. You know, some of the clockwork is visible, like on the back of the knees when you move them around sometimes, but the knee pads do kind of hide it, which is why I guess some of them do have the knee pads, and some don't. They bothered giving him wrist tape, which is cool. It's just painted on, but I mean, Sting, they couldn't even paint his hands black, you know, what the fuck. But yeah, I mean, it's got the fuzzy boots like He-Man had. It's even got the sculpted straps. I mean, again, Mattel was like the king of parts reuse with this kind of stuff. But I mean, for a line like this and for Masters of the Universe, it makes sense. So I like that they went there with it. And I thought I saw some paint slop. It was just a shadow. Nope, just a one little splash of red on the back. And we're going to come back in just a second. I'm going to pop his gimmicks off, and then we'll just see what he looks like. Au natural, so to speak. And there you have Roddy in his regular wrestling gear. Again, this is actually, so far, the most complete one that I've taken out of the package and took all the gimmicks off. Because it's Sting, missing the gloves, Savage, you'd have to put some extra knee pads on him. But this Roddy Piper right here, you take off the armor, you take off the kilt gimmick or whatever, and you've got a pretty perfect Roddy. I mean, obviously he's got the fuzzy boots, but if you can ignore that, it looks like a perfect version of Roddy in his wrestling gear. The face is a little bit off. It's not quite as accurate as Sting and Savage, I guess you'd say, but I mean, it's still acceptable. I mean, it's you know, his face changed over the years too, based on like his haircut, how much weight he gained or lost, his age. You know, he looked different all the time. So I guess they kind of try to shoot right in the middle here with that, and that's cool too. I really love the figure. Doesn't get much better than this. He's ready to rumble right out of the box there. I love it, and I like the gimmicks. Like I said, this is one of the better figures in the line, in my opinion, and they're all pretty great for various reasons, but really, really love this Roddy Piper. And like I said, any Piper that comes out, I really try to get my hands on because he's just such an iconic character in wrestling history. He's one of my favorites of all time, and you know, I love the guy. And he was a huge inspiration on me as a kid, and to this day, still an inspiration. I wish I had a chance to tell him so, but you know, maybe he knows. In any case, you know, the coloring is perfect. The shade of blue on the trunks and the knee pads, the red accents on the shirt armor, the Hot Rod logo, absolutely perfect. I like that the axe is sculpted in his shade of blue, or molded in his shade of blue. Matches the trunks. That's a neat little touch, you know. Like I said, Mattel, even when they reuse stuff for this kind of line, they still don't do it in a way that feels lazy or cheap. You know, they put a little twist on it to be like, okay, that makes sense. So that's really cool, and love the figure. Great. If you can find it, pick it up. I'm glad I did. We got one more to look at for today, and we're going to be bringing things full circle in a manner of speaking. We're going to take it back to where we started, but with a twist. So just hang out. We got one more to do. Well, they tried to stop him, but the Horde World Order revived the Macho Man to take over WWE Eternia. When you're HWO, it's for life. Again, they liked to mix up WWE and the Masters Legacy lore here with these kind of things. I think that's really cool. What we have here is obviously a New World Order inspired Macho Man from '97, but done in the Masters twist. So gotta love that. Love the black and white attire. I like that they, you know, made Hordak responsible for the HWO. That's cool. They didn't, as far as I know, they didn't do a Hordak inspired figure in the line though, which is pretty interesting. But you know, their heart was in the right place, so lots of love to them for that. Flip it around. We're gonna take a look at the biographical artwork as well as the cross-sell Wrestle Wave 5. Now Steamboat I didn't cover today. He's the only one from this wave I don't have yet. Hopefully get him in the future. We will see. That's what I'm looking forward to getting. But yeah, great stuff here. And like I said, we started with Macho Man, so I figured it was only right that we end today's video with a different Macho Man, because he was one of the very few figures in the line to get two figures, and the other one being Ultimate Warrior. We'll talk a little bit about him next time on From the Vault. But yeah, I mean, this is great. We got to pop this guy open right now. I mean, I don't want to wait. Let's just do it. And here he is. We're going out with who we came in with, the Macho Man. Yeah, except we're going out with the HWO Macho Man Randy Savage. Now, you'll notice right off the bat, he does have similar gimmickry to the regular one that came out in Wave 2. As far as armor, mace, all that, it's a little bit scaled down. It doesn't have the battle armor effect like the first one. It's just a regular drape over piece of armor, but he has the same leg bracers. He also comes with the mace. It's a different mace, which I'm not a huge fan of because it's a lot smaller than the one that came with the first Macho Man, and it looks rather puny in his hand. But, you know, it is what it is. It's fine. I think that's the one that came with the Man-at-Arms figure in the Origins line, just cast in white instead of orange. I'd have to have them side by side to know for sure, but I think that's what's going on. But again, the same basic idea of having armor, a mace, the leg bracers, and the removable bandana here. Just like Piper, he was a little stiff getting out of the package, so if you're picking these up, you know, give them a minute and kind of gently bend the elbows a little bit before you start really knocking them around, because it's just, they are really durable, but I wouldn't want to take any chances, and they do loosen up very, very quickly, so that's cool. And so again, we have inspired by his 1997 New World Order attire. You got the black and white outfit with the stars going down the front. I've really always loved that look for the Macho Man, and they did a great job recreating it here. Again, comes with the mini comic illustrated here, you know. Back with the cross-sell artwork. And then again, in the interior, they explain the change between Macho Man and his newer HWO-inspired gimmick. He was snake bit, thrown in the slime pit, and left to rot. Yeah, but you can't stop the Macho Man. They didn't know what they'd unleashed when they did the Macho Man dirty like that. Yeah, now he's back for revenge, and he's taken over WWE Eternia with the Horde World Order. Fantastic stuff there. Really like that they went all out with these. I mean, even the paid announcement paid for by the HWO. It's like, God, they put so much love and care into this line from multiple angles. It's just like, how could you not love it? I mean, if you're a wrestling fan, a Masters of the Universe fan, or like me, a huge fan of wrestling and Masters of the Universe, it's like, this is just a dream line. I mean, I know some people who like He-Man stuff who hate wrestling, but they still picked up a lot of these figures just for the fact that they fit in so well with Masters of the Universe, and especially with the Origins line where you can mix the parts and everything. I go online, and when I go on the He-Man boards and stuff, when these figures were coming out, there were countless people going, man, I hate wrestling, but I got to get these anyway because I could use these parts for this and that and the other thing. And it's just, wow, you know. Or some people only like certain characters, like Macho Man or Piper, you know, and they collect as many of them as they get, which is great. Some people were a little grouchy because Savage, as well as Ultimate Warrior, they each had 2 figures in the line, whereas everybody else only had 1, and a lot of people didn't have any. So some people were like, oh, how come we got 2 figures? But it's like, come on, man, it's Macho Man. You're going to complain? I mean, plus, just look how cool this dude looks. He's even got the little Horde armband on him there. That's fantastic. Like, they really, really did a great job of putting the gimmick over here. You know, the madness on the bandana. Great stuff. I love it. I love everything about it, except, like I said, I'd have the Mace be a little bit bigger. Nitpicky stuff, perhaps, but I'm going to bring in his pre-slime pit counterpart, just to kind of give you a compare and contrast, because you guys know I love to do that. You guys know I love to do that. So again, here we've got regular and HWO flavor Macho Man. And you can see some of the distinctive similarities and differences between the two. Like, I would have loved to have seen this Mace recast, because I just feel like it looks better than this rather puny one that a reissue has. But you can see a lot of the stuff is the same in different colors, like the leg bracers there. Totally different armor, I will say. Part of me wonders if they just thought it would be simpler to do it the way they did on this figure. Not sure. The helmet is the same, bandana helmet. Still comes off a little too easy, but I mean, it's fine, you know, if you give it a press, it stays on pretty good. You know, no real complaints. Like I said, it's always fun for me to see the compare and contrast, because they did this guy twice, and both of them were great figures to have. I mean, there was no way I was going to only get one or the other. I had to get both. It wasn't even a question. And my only real gripe was that in this line, they did not specifically make a Hogan or Hollywood Hogan single-carded figure that would go great with either of these guys. Now, they did do a Hogan that came in the Rattlesnake Mountain playset with the Stone Cold Steve Austin figure. They did a red and yellow Hogan, which was great, but unfortunately I don't have that set yet because it's over like $200 now on the secondary market. So that's a bit of a bummer. I missed it when it was brand new for $50, and now it's skyrocketed because they didn't single card either Hogan or Austin, and those are 2 guys everybody wanted. So they snapped that set up like gangbusters, and even a lot of times you'll see people online, they'll sell the Snake Mountain ring, but they'll keep the figures for themselves, the greedy bastards. So finding the ring with the Hogan and Austin figures is a pretty unfortunate task, but I will acquire them at some point. Don't you worry about that, because you guys know me. I don't miss a Hogan figure, and Austin's okay too. So, you know, they're both must-have characters. But yeah, I mean, getting a little bit off the script, but you know, like I said, Hollywood Hogan, he's in the Superstars line now. He's going to look great standing next to this Macho Man. And when I do get the Hogan, the red and yellow Hogan, he's going to look great standing next to this Macho Man. So it's like, I'm all about it. I don't care. They could have done Savage had so many different looks. He's a character they could have done in this line a dozen times, and it would have felt fresh, no matter which way they did them. I mean, you know, that was the magic and the majesty of the Macho Man, right? You know, he never looked the same way twice, and you know, that was by design. So, again, real quick, we're going to come back in a second, see what he looks like without the gear, and then we're going to wrap it up. Okay, and just like Sting and Piper and the other version of Macho Man, when you take all the gimmicks off of him, he looks like he would fit in perfectly in the Superstars line that does not cross over with the WWE Masters of WWE Universe. You know, great standard-looking Macho Man figure. Love the Madness shirt. The detail on that is on point. The tights are perfect. The colors, you know, I love the black and white color scheme for it. I love that they really were meticulous in recreating these logos beyond any measure that was, you know, they're not just kids' toys. You know, they didn't half-ass a thing on these. They did a fantastic job all the way around. And I love it. Again, if I could make any nitpicks, it's that he doesn't have tape on his hands or gloves, because this Macho Man always had gloves pretty much. But, you know, like I said, the shirt, the leg bracers and the helmet, they kind of come off a little too easy. They just flew off when I was taking them off. Now, this armor piece here is interesting, because this was totally different from the other armor piece, which uses the snaps. This kind of just has little, it's all like a rubbery plastic, and it just kind of, it's got little nubs that go in the holes there. But to get it on and off, I had to do something that I told you guys originally I wasn't going to do. But you do have to pop the head off to put the armor off and on. But it's not hard to do. I'll do it for you right now. See, as much as I love how this looks, like, that's perfect. Like, that is a perfect Macho Man. Even the sunglasses. Mine has a little tiny nick on the right eye that I'm going to have to fill in with a tiny stroke of black paint, but I mean, so nitpicky. So nitpicky. So all you do here is you get a nice little grip, and you just kind of pop. Comes off so, not so easy that it's not going to stay on when you put it back on, but I mean, it pops off real easy. You got the little neck peg there, very standard. You just give it some room. Just pop that over the top there like that. You just pop the pegs in the holes on his back. I'm just kind of going through it real quickly for you, and then you just give it a little push, pops right back on. Just like a lot of the Ultimates and Storm Collectibles figures that have similar gimmicks, except like I said, these guys are pretty much modular with all their parts. All their parts pop in and out pretty easily for customization and swapping, and that's fantastic. So again, this peg here, like I said, I just blew through it for the sake of showing you guys, but that's how easy it is, you know. It takes seconds to get him in and out of his gear. So don't be afraid about having to pop the heads off or anything like that, because unless you're a total goober about it, you're not going to hurt him. You know, good stuff. I mean, I love this figure. I love this line. I mean, my only regret is that I don't have all the characters yet, but that's something that will hopefully rectify in the very near future. But so we started with Macho Man, we finished with Macho Man, and they're both A+. What can be said? It's Macho Man. If you find them, get them. 10 out of 10. And that just about wraps it up. That is our first episode taking a look at the Masters of WWE Universe line by Mattel. Macho Man, Becky Lynch, Rowdy Roddy Piper, and the man called Sting. I love all of these figures. I love almost everything about them. Nitpicks. Sting's weapons are terrible. Becky's face could be a little better. And HWO Macho Man has a puny little mace. But other than that, I mean, there's nothing but love for these figures. Everything about them, from design to the look to the execution. Like I said, the worst thing for me was Sting's weapons. That's kind of heartbreaking because they just kind of break up the figure a little bit. You can't pose them with the other nunchuck-looking thing. It just drags them forward. It's a real pain in the butt. But at the same time, you know, the clawful gimmick is kind of okay with that. That's the worst thing, really, but I mean, the best thing about the whole line is just the fact that you could tell this was put together by people who put a ton of thought and love and care into not just taking He-Man and WWE and smashing them together, but by doing it in a way that shows a lot of thought, a lot of understanding and love for the characters, and doing what I love to do best, and that's take old school and bring it back to the new school. And this line is so representative of that and everything I'm about. The weapons, the pack-in mini comics, and things like that. I mean, it's just, it brings me back to my childhood in ways that a lot of other action figure lines just can't do by definition. So this was a home run for me. There's going to be quite a few more of these figures that we look at over the time. We're going to come back with the next episode and take a look at the rest of the figures that I currently have that I was able to get on single card. And again, my biggest gripe is just that the line, for various reasons, didn't go on even longer than it did. I mean, the last wave they did was a real knockout with characters like Andre, Bret Hart, that people really were looking forward to. I don't have any of those yet, but you know, hopefully real soon. And beyond that, though, since Masters of the Universe was the first action figure line I ever collected. Somebody asked me yesterday if I remembered the first action figure I ever owned, and I'd have to say that just the process of elimination mixed with a little memory, I would have been maybe a year old. It would have almost definitely been Battle Armor He-Man and Battle Cat that came in a gift set back in 82, 83. That would have been the first action figure, period, that I ever owned. And Masters of the Universe was the first line I ever collected. I was able to get about 3/4 of the original series, which was fantastic. And to this day, I'm a huge sucker and a collector for these kind of 5.5 style action figures that ape the Masters and He-Man style. So whether it's the Sunbow knockoffs or the Remco AWA figures, or whether it's Funko or Super 7 or Mattel now back in the ring with their versions of this stuff that's inspired by the stuff from the 80s. I mean, we're going to be talking a lot about these 5.5 Masters inspired figures, because that's one of my favorite types of figure to collect. But as far as combining the look with actual modern day functionality, I mean, these are a slam dunk, home run, pick your sports metaphor of choice. It just doesn't get any better than these. And they were the forerunner to Origins, because they beat them to market by a few months. But between this line and Masters of the Universe Origins, everything old is now new again, brother. And, you know, that's what I love to see. So this was a lot of fun for me to take a look at these guys, finally get my hands on them, mess them around a little bit. Always a lot of fun. Keeping these kind of figures in the package is a real crime, and I wish you guys wouldn't do it. You know, these things aren't going to put your kids through college, probably, so just, you know, take them out, have fun. That's what it's all about. They're toys. I mean, that's what it's all about. Have fun. And these guys, to really appreciate them, you gotta get your hands on them. So that's going to do it for today. That was episode 1 of our look at Masters of WWE Universe. A lot more to come, and we're going to be coming back at you next time from the vault. Ricky Rock's Retro Action Figure Review. Thanks for sticking with us. Like, share, subscribe, comment. I always love hearing what you guys think about my goofy shit. And we're going to get you real soon, I hope, from the vault.